What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A here on the OnoCoffee channel. I'm Jay, your host, and we come to you live with this live stream most Monday through Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So what's going on? How you doing? Hope everyone's doing well, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us for the first time, feel free to ask questions about coffee. We have the live chat here, and if you're watching on the replay, drop some comments down below. Let me know what you think. All right, so today we're going to be talking about something that kind of came up in one of the earlier live streams, something called Café Ost. And Café Ost is this thing from Sweden, you know, the IKEA people, where in the Lapland, the northern part of Sweden that borders against Finland. Charles, how are you, man? Good to see you. And turn off the water for a second. So up here in this part of the world, it's cold. It's cold, lots of snow. This time of year, it's probably a frozen tundra. Well, it's probably a frozen wonderland because it's very wooded. Some pictures that I've seen are very beautiful. But somehow along the way, these people in the Lapland have decided to take coffee and mix it with cheese to prepare this thing called Café Ost. The story is that, of course, in that part of the world, reindeer are plentiful, the type that takes Santa Claus around the world. So the cheese, which is called, I think it's called Leppäjuusto. Is that right? Leppäjuusto. I don't know. I think the J is really more. Like when you walk into IKEA, they have these big signs that says hedge, H-E-J, which I believe is hey, like hey, in Swedish. So Leppäjuusto, right? Leppäjuusto, I guess is how you say it, right? Is something called bread cheese. And this bread cheese is a cheese that's derived from the milk of the reindeer. Supposedly it's very mild and maybe slightly salty, I think. Naomi, good morning to you. What does that look like? Tofu. It is a cheese. It is a cheese. Good morning to you, Malku. And Peter, how are you? So these people take the reindeer milk and they make into this cheese that's supposedly kind of a texture of halloumi. So soft but firm, mild, maybe a little bit salty. More modern times, I guess some people are still. So this cheese in Sweden evidently is very popular. So it's widespread over the years, and it's not just made from reindeer anymore. It also is made from cow colostrum or something like that. There's particular part of it, milk from a particular part of the cow, I think, that makes this. But generally, it's a milder cheese. So somewhere along the way, these guys in the Lapland thought that they would add the cheese to their coffee. And it's very popular. It's very, well, at least up there, it's very popular. It was popular, and then it wasn't popular, and then now it's supposedly starting to gain more resurgence in Swedish culture. And also because they're the Lapland people, that is on the border with Finland, a lot of the Finnish in that part of the world or that part of their country really like this style of coffee as well. So I thought we would explore that. Mom, good morning to you as well. So yesterday I went over to the Amish market. We have an Amish market not too far away. And, Amish markets are funny, right? Like when they first started coming down here, everyone's like, oh, Amish market, everything's farm fresh, everything's cool, everything's great. And I was like, oh yeah, it's awesome. In many respects, it really is awesome. And then I got into the food side of the business, right? And then I was like, then sometimes I go there and like if you go to some of the prepared food counters, right, where they have all the different prepared foods, some of that stuff is coming from Cisco. It's like, come on now. Like, come on. But everybody loves it. And sometimes you just want to get red bean eggs, so they have it. But one of the counters at the local Amish market is a cheese counter. And, I was always under the impression that they're like this wild selection of cheeses, all kinds of cheese. But when I went yesterday, it's not really a wide selection. It's a really kind of a narrow selection. It's huge, right? It's probably 16 feet of refrigerated reach-ins that are filled with cheeses. But they're mainly either the same cheeses that are cubed or sliced. It's not really a wide variety. It's just, and then there's a whole nother section of the the processed cheese, the cheese that they mix with other stuff, which I like. Don't get me wrong. So I'm looking through here, and I'm like, I'm shocked at the limited range of the cheeses. But it contextually it does make sense, right? This is an Amish family. They're serving cheeses that are from the Amish part of the country, the Lancaster County in Pennsylvania. The Amish are not making a wide range of cheeses, right? They're not making cheeses from in styles all over the world. That's not what they do. They're making like old school Amish cheeses. And so I'm looking through it. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what would be the closest thing to this Lepajusto? Right? I have no idea. Emo says that the cheese-infused coffee, very intrigued. Yeah, me too. I haven't tried it yet. This is my first time. Nemo says, right, can't imagine the flavor. So I was looking and I found this. There was a couple cheeses. There was one called the farmer cheese. I think it was farmer cheese. No, I can't remember. Maybe no. And then there's this that I found. This is called the Amish butter cheese. $12 a pound, $7.31. As you can see, Welsh Mountain Deli is the name of the place. So kind of pricey, I think, as far as cheeses go. I don't know if that's really pricey or not. I never really thought about the price of cheese. When I need cheese, I buy cheese. I don't necessarily worry too much about it. Although I am buying cheese at Lidl a lot, so Lidl has a nice range of cheeses at very low prices. But this Amish butter cheese, I was asking the lady, and I was like, so what is it? She's like, it's mild cheese, And I said, and I told her what I was looking for. I was looking for something to do with coffee. And I said, what would you make? And she was like, this is probably good. So this is our Amish butter cheese, which should be relatively close to style to the Lepajusto. The Lepajusto has this firm halloumi texture, which this kind of has, right? It kind of it doesn't break apart like halloumi. It kind of slices apart, which is kind of interesting. And it has a mildly pungent aroma. So it's fairly, it's fairly substantial. Right, let's see if we can break it. Yeah, it doesn't really, well, I guess it's sort of breaking there. Okay. And then the flavor, though, let's have a taste. I let this sit out for the last 10 minutes or so from the refrigerator because I was wondering, like, will it get more espresso? I find this to be a very mild, benign kind of cheese. Like it's got like milk curd flavor. And that's really it. Like, it tells me that this is a very fresh type of cheese. Maybe with some textures of Havarti, but no real, like, not terribly distinct flavor. Like, it's like basic cheese curds. Not that that's bad. Just that I was thinking, oh, maybe there's some kind of flavor experience that's going to happen. And the flavor experience is very mild, very benign. But in Sweden, they actually have this thing called cloudberries. And a lot of people will eat this cheese with cloudberries. So how they do it, they take this cheese and they form it. When they get this stuff, they evidently form it into these like, not rings, but rounds. And then the thing about this cheese, and I guess because they're so far removed and the winters are very harsh and all that, they actually let the cheese dry. So the cheese dries out. And then what they're doing is that they will rehydrate it somehow, whether by baking it with some cream, or in the case that we're going to be doing today, putting it in coffee, and then it kind of rehydrates that way. So evidently, my understanding is that they put this dried cheese in the cup, and then they pour the coffee over it. And that softens the cheese and allows it to combine into the coffee. But they will eat it with things like cloudberries, or they'll put it in a tray and they'll bake it until it kind of like looks like, charred, and then they'll eat that with bread. So Lepajusto, it's called bread cheese, so they'll also eat it with bread. But it's not necessarily meant to it doesn't have to be eaten with bread. I don't know why they came to the point of that. Anton's with us. What's going on? Naomi says, if it sounds disgusting, we must try. We always must try it, of course. Anton is here. Good, good. MO says, I'm not sure really anything can surprise. I don't know what licorice and basil were a thing, but Vietnamese and Thai use both in coffee frequently. I thought of it because of herbal books. Yeah, licorice as in black. I mean, probably licorice roots. Actually, I had a dish yesterday evidently from the southern part of the Philippines, in origin, that use peanut butter, pineapples, and star anise. And I bit into the star anise. Of course, it has that licorice-y kind of taste, which I'm not a big fan of. But I was like, but the dish itself was really interesting. I was like, oh, this is very interesting. I've never had this before. M0 says, my initial reaction, though, was that very same quiet astonishment and wonder that a fisherman gets when some unusual creature emerges from the water. Throw that back. That's a good one. That's a good one. All right, so they use something called cloudberries that they eat with this, but I don't have anything like cloudberries. I looked it up, and it's kind of a cross between raspberries and, oh gosh, what was the other one? It said raspberries and something else. And I was like, so a little bit tardiness. So I thought, let me see what I have that would approximate that. I've got some homemade strawberry jam. That's probably not it. I thought about this guava jelly that I have, and I was like, I don't know. But then I saw this. I have this thing here that I thought might be a nice approximation. Not very close. This is something called Ohelo berry jam from Hawaii. I get this in Hawaii. It's one of my favorite jams. And this is a brand called Pele brand from Volcano in the Big Island. And I love this stuff. Like, I can't get enough. So Ohelo berries are, and the reason that it's called Pele, right? Pele, if you're not familiar, Pele is one of the major gods of ancient Hawaii. And Pele is the god of fire. She's the one that rules over the volcanoes. And, you just don't want to upset her, right? You upset her. Like, there's Maui, but he's a demigod. He's one of those gods, right? This is Pele. Pele is like, Maui is here. Like the Rock and Maui are here. Pele is up here, right? So anyway, you just don't want to upset Pele. And Pele has this jam. And basically there is a type of flower, the ohelo tree that flowers. It has this kind of like, they don't have very good detail on it, but basically it's this prickly looking red florally, it basically shoots out in all directions, right, like that. But it produces this berry, and so you pick it, and then they make it in the jam, and I think it's a lightly tart. I think it's lightly tart, but I just love the flavor. So let's have a look, and we're going to try that with our cheese, just to get an idea of what these people are doing. Like, they're in the middle of winter, like we are now, freezing and I imagine that they're sitting around in their log cabins with a fire and wearing fur. This is the stereotype that I have in my mind. They're just a bunch of like Swedish dudes sitting around, hey, and eating this with a fire in lots of skins. So I'm going to put this here. And we're going to give it a try. There's a little bit of darkness and yeah, that's good. Again, the cheese is not terribly, and I don't know if this is how the Lepayusto really is, right? It should be somewhat similar, but I don't know if there's more of a pronounced flavor. Like, this butter cheese doesn't really have very pronounced flavor at all. It's very mild. It's very neutral. It's very easy to get along with. Peter says some Turkish coffee has cardamom in it. Oh, yes. Cardamom in coffee. What is it similar in flavor to no, I mean, the cloudberry, they say, is similar in flavor to raspberry. It's that tardiness. But this doesn't have so much. The tardiness on this is more on the finish. It's later, like up front, it's sweet and smooth. And then as you progress through the flavors on your palate, it becomes a little more tardy. And finish is really pretty. It's very pretty. But it's not terribly tardy. It's not like punchy tardy. And I don't really know what cloudberries are like. So we're just kind of approximating, right? Because we're so far from Sweden. I thought for a moment maybe I should go to IKEA and see what they have, but I don't think they have this kind of stuff. If you wanted the wheat crackers, they would have that. And IKEA's chocolates, not bad, not bad. All right, so we're gonna make this into the coffee and see what it's like. Naomi's actually berry flavored though, cranberry, blackberry. I mean, it's maybe kind of maybe the best for the Ohelo berry, if that's what you're asking, but maybe a cross between strawberry and blackberry. Ish. And of course, that will depend upon the kind of strawberry and blackberry you're using and the time that you harvested them and how you made them into your jams. Like, I'll make strawberry jam fairly regularly. And fairly regularly means that when I'm starting to run out and then I start to think about making them the coming year. And I made so much last year that I won't make any this year because I still have so much. It's like ridiculous. Because sometimes, you go crazy. Like when I had the shops were running, right, we would use this. We would make it every year because we would consume it, right? But now that I'm alone, what am I doing with like 12 jars of strawberry jam? Like, you get the field case and you're like making all this jam, and then you're like, now you're good for it. Like this. I have this other one. My last bottle of jam from the previous one is from like 2022, I think it was. So yeah. I don't go through it that fast, just by myself. So let's make coffee for this. M0 says strawberry and blackberry. So yeah, this is, if you ever have the chance to get, and I think you could order online, the Ohelo berry jam, I think is really excellent. Like I love this stuff. I've been eating this since the 90s. This same brand. Like whenever I go to the Big Island, I'll go to Kilauea General Store where they make this or sell it, and I'm just buying like as many as I can, as many as I dare. And the last time I bought it, and the nice thing with these, they'll last for years. You never have to worry about it, right? Like my mom will call me and she's like, "Is this okay?" I said, "Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Don't worry about it. It's preserved. Everything's fine. Don't worry." So like this one, when I bought it last, was $5.95, which may be expensive in the world of like Smuckers and Welch's, especially for one that's 8 ounces. But I think it's great value. Great value. I'm sure it's more expensive now because this is probably, I haven't been to Hawaii since 2022, and I bet I bought this before that. So let's go and make some coffee. I have some of our house coffee here, House Nation. So we're gonna get that out here. Peter says, need to get some Swedish stinky surströmming fish. Oh, I'm not familiar with that, but that sounds quite scary and intriguing. Okay, so let's get our fellow scale, what is this called? Not the O, this is the Fellow Tally Pro. And we're gonna do our usual recipe, 24 grams. Gonna keep it real simple. This is the House Nation blend from Spro that I make. It's a nice, I think, very approachable, very agreeable, maybe generally agreeable. I should say generally agreeable because, we designed it to give it a nice roasty note, not roasty notes, but cocoa or chocolate and just friendly, familiar notes for a regular drinking person, right? Because that's really who we serve this to, is kind of like normal people who are not like necessarily crazy coffee aficionados. Although I was at the food market the other day delivering coffee, and one of the baristas, she was like, one of the servers, she was like, "Hey, that lady, she really is enjoying the coffee." I was like, "Oh, all right, very nice, very nice. We're very happy." And she was talking to that woman, and then was telling her about like her experiences with coffee, and she really loves coffee. She enjoyed the coffee, so that's my point. I'm very happy. So we're going to use something really similar, and so because we're talking about coffee from Sweden, the Scandinavians, these people up north who love certain types of coffee, I thought, let's get the ubiquitous brewer that people always like, especially that part of the world, the V60 pour over from Hario. Although if I had an April, I probably should use that. They're from somewhere there, right? April. But I don't have an April brewer. I was going to buy one at the last SCA show, and I walked up to the counter. I was like, "How much is it?" $50. I was like, $50 for a V60 pour over. I'm not gonna buy that. I know some of you are probably like, why, this is the best brewer ever, but I was just like, where's what is the April brewer so amazing that I would want to spend $50? Tell me, I'm interested. I'm curious. So we've got our V60 filter. So as you can see here, it says V60, just in case you're wondering. This is not a Temu special. This is a Japan Hario. I picked this up in Japan, in Tokyo, probably at Tokyo Hands, where I normally do a lot of my coffee shopping. Paige, good morning to you. So we're gonna take that. Oh, you know me, I like to fold over this seam just so that it all sits flat. I like folding that over. And then put this in here. Okay, so that's in there. That's ready to go. Let me turn the water back on. And then now with our coffee is all. So let's get our Gen 2. Oh, I gotta readjust it. Ooh. Why does that make that noise? You see that when I'm turning the knob? It sounds like it's running a little bit like rough, like maybe parts of the metal are contacting with each other. That sounds a little better. Okay, good. Here is our coffee. There it is, all nice and brown. Just under the 6, in case you're wondering, just under 6. Now, for today, I think we're going to get the Hardy cup for us. We're going to get this Hardy cup, and we're going to put that here. And what we're going to do is we're going to brew directly into this and drink from this. But we're going to take the cheese and put. Now, I don't know. In the stuff that I read online, I don't know how much cheese you're supposed to put. Jeremiah, good morning to you. And so I don't know if we're supposed to put a lot of cheese, a little bit of cheese. I saw some pictures and it looked like they had like 4 cubes in it. So we're going to put 4 cubes of this cheese into the thing. Anton says they're probably just some bean shards flying around. It could be. It could be. I'm not okay. I'm okay with that. Just hopefully it's not metal shards flying around. All right, so let's put some in here. Now, if you're working in a cafe environment, probably should not be putting your fingers on the food. People might get a little bit upset with that. But you know what? We're here, and there it is. Okay, so there it is. We have 4 cubes in there. Oh, here's what we should do. Let me tear this out. 4 cubes. So we have, is that right? 500 grams? Did I see that correctly? Okay. We have 506 grams of cheese. And then now we're going to put this here. We're going to tear it again. Now we're clean. Then we're going to add our 24.2. So pretty much zero retention again. Thank you, Omniel. And now we're ready. So let me shake this to make it nice and even. So we've got everything all together. Just line this up in the frame for you. So we're ready. 14.5, which gives 350 grams of water, which is our normal brew ratio. 24.2. The water's at a nice boil, and we're going to press that reset, and now we're ready to go. Let me get our Hario Fit Kettle. Even though we use a lot of Hario, we're not sponsored by Hario. All of this is paid for by my pocket. Actually, these Fit Kettles, I remember quite a number of years ago, we've always used the Hario Buono kettles at Spro. And when the Fits came out, they weren't really available in the United States. And, you know, I really hate buying from Hario USA sometimes because they're such a pain to deal with. My brother would happen to be traveling in Japan with his family. So I called him up. I said, hey, man, can you go to the Tokyo Hands or go to the store and buy me 2 of these? And he's like, yeah, man, no problem. That's how we got those. These are imported directly. All right, so let's have a look here. We're going to brew. Anton said you get some nice glitter in the coffee as a bonus. Oh, I hope so. And it's pretty dense. Okay, so here we go now. We're ready to go. Here we go now. So we're going to do it. We'll do 85 grams or so for the bloom. 84 is good. Let that bloom. And now it's brewing directly onto, well, it's not directly onto the cheese. Let me turn this around a little bit so that it pours it directly onto the cheese. I want it to like brew onto the cheese to encourage the melting properties. Right, let me pull this. Oh, I can't. This is the problem. I don't have it all set up exactly so that I can keep this centered onto this camera. I really should. Well, I can't really. Anyway, so let's go back to it now. 40 seconds. Let's go and do a little bit more. We're just going to break down the crust that is formed. 124, so we're going to slow down now and let that brew away. So as I'm looking here at the coffee, it's not real. I mean, at the cheese, it's not really breaking down. Oh, a little bit. There's a little bit of like, I can see some maybe residual oils that are now starting to float on the top, but it's holding its form relatively well. So we're going to work on keeping our typical pace of 100 grams per minute. 160, 131. Now you can see here there's it's a little bit dry on the edges, so I want to get those edges. My whole thing is that I really want to make sure that we have the coffee, as much of the coffee as hydrated as we possibly can, because I think that without the coffee being wet and hydrated, then it's not extracting and we're missing out on flavor of the coffee. So that's my whole shtick, right? That's pretty much what I think about in a nutshell. I just want to make sure we have as much of the coffee wet throughout the process so that we have constant extraction. And I'm not necessarily worried about all these pouring measurements, right? Generally speaking. And we're just doing general pouring. Like, I don't think you necessarily need to like be too obsessive about it. If you are obsessive about it, don't get me wrong. I mean, perfectly, you know, this is a free world, or, you know, we're trying to have a free world, so you can do whatever you want. I make no proclamations to over you what you want to do with your brewing. But now that I'm looking at it, I can see distinct oily globules floating on the surface of the coffee. So obviously something is happening, and part of that is becoming, you know, into the mix. Now, one of the things that people are like, you know, of course, cheese for most people, that's an odd thing. But really, if we think about it, we put basically cheese into our coffees, right? We put a lot of cream. So, of course, cheese is derived from cream. So, you know, it's a dairy product. So it's not terribly weird. It's probably what they have available to them. Probably don't want to go out into the weather, into the snow, and milk their reindeer in the middle of winter. Reindeers probably get pissed off, might kick them. So I wouldn't want to do that either. So 3 minutes, 32 seconds, we're just short of our goal, but we're almost there. I'm going to go all the way up. I don't want to exceed, well, I guess we can exceed. This will be the final pour, so we can go a little bit higher. 348, 350 grams. Very nice, very nice. Turn the coffee to the pots. So it's coming down 4 minutes, 6 seconds. A little bit slow on the brew today. M0 says milking a deer sounds super committed and organized. That's exactly. It's like, I guess, and I'm sure that's why they don't use the reindeer milk. They use reindeer cheese, because, you know, you do the milking once and then you have the cheese for months at a time, so you don't have to, you know, the reindeer you don't have to get kicked by your reindeer. Okay, so let's have a look here. So it looks like we're pretty much finished. As you can see, there is the glitter that Anton is talking about. And as you can see, all that glitters isn't gold. Right? And then now let's have a look here. You can kind of see the cheese in here. Right? So it's floating there. But we should taste it while it's floating, right? Let's see how the flavor is. Oh. There's definitely a distinct flavor added to the coffee. Maybe like a little bit of saltiness is really the major thing that I'm getting. It's a little bit of saltiness. It's very interesting. Anton said that's a lot of coffee. It would be a shame if it tasted cheap. It's a little bit salty. Not offensive, just different. Like it's very different. Let me make sure that there's no Hello Berry jam left on it. So I wonder if we stir, if that's going to do anything for us. So let's stir. So the cheese is not really breaking down. As you can see, it's pretty, I mean, it's soft and it's starting to deform, as you can see here with the heat, but it's not like, it's not dissipating and emulsifying into the liquid. But let's have a taste of this on my spoon. Now it's kind of got that, it's not really stringy, but it's soft, and that string is like when you have mozzarella, melted mozzarella. So my understanding is that they'll drink it like this, and then they'll also eat the cheese at the same time. So let's have a look at the cheese. Now the cheese is not incorporating. If it's doing anything, it's just melting away. It's just softening and melting. So let's have a taste of this big cheese. I think it's perfectly fine. Like if we, let's think about our typical approach to coffee, breakfast. Let's say breakfast. Let's say we're having breakfast with our coffee, and we think, oh, geez, that's weird, right? But is it really weird? Because like here in the United States, a lot of times I'll go out and get like a breakfast sandwich and coffee. What's in a breakfast sandwich? Right? Typically, eggs or bacon, sausage, or something like that, on bread with cheese, right? With American cheese, and you'll happily eat that with your coffee. This kind of eliminates that step. Or if you're in Central America, they like to have that cotija cheese, right? The cotija cheese, that kind of hard, again, like a hard feta, but very mild. And they have that with their coffee and breakfast. And that's a big component. So it's not necessarily too, I'm trying to think about other parts of the world. Like, I don't know, Anton, in your part of the world, is there cheese at breakfast? Yeah, there's sliced cheeses. Like that, the hotels that I've been to in Germany, they will have like sliced meats, like cold cut sliced cheeses to go along with the breakfast service, right? I for certain, when I arrive into Frankfurt Airport, like at 6 a.m, and I go to the buffet at the Lufthansa lounge, the very first thing that I'm grabbing is the cheese pretzel, right? And that's it. And the cheese pretzel and maybe coffee, and that's a brilliant. So we're just kind of eliminating this. But as you can see here, as the time progresses, we're getting more and more globules of the oils on the surface. So more glitteriness. What about mixing, stirring? Let's see. I don't think that mixing, stirring is going to do much for it. Like, it's not really going to incorporate into our. I think it's meant to be something where you are drinking and chowing and drinking and chowing. very good. I don't think I'm going to do this like every day that I have coffee in the morning, but it's not terrible. Like, it's not horrific. It's not offensive. I get it. You're in the middle of the frozen winterland in the Lapland, in your cabin with the fire, wearing a lot of, like, fur. That'd be kind of fun. Anton asks, will you also put an espresso on top of one block? We can. We certainly will do. We'll do that. We'll do that. Naomi says the cheese probably tastes all good enough. It's so the cheese itself, like this particular butter cheese from the Amish country, is very mild. It's in many respects it's very benign. I'm a little bit disappointed with it. Like, I like a little bit more flavorful cheese. Like, this is very, very mild. Like, this is super like mild cheese. So I'm not wildly ecstatic about the cheese. So I'm not. But I'm guessing that it's probably similar to what they're having in Sweden. I don't know. But, the one thing about this kind of cheese that's a positive. So let's say we were to use this at Spro on a menu as a menu item. I would be hesitant to use this, but I probably would go with something like this because it's more benign. It's less potentially offensive. Like, I think the clientele here would be weirded out already by the thought of putting cheese in coffee. Like, that's already strange. Like, if you were to give them a pungent or more forceful kind of cheese, it might be too much. But the cheese is fine, texture, quality of it, but the flavor is so mild. It's just like, I don't find tremendous joy in eating the cheese. Jeremiah says it seems better to melt the cheese on top of buttermilk biscuit and also drink a cup of coffee. Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it. Anton says, yes, we put cheese on bread. Most Germans like cheese. And most Germans, there's some good cheese in Germany. I've enjoyed the cheese. Especially that Brezelkass or whatever you call it, man. Oh, so good. And if you guys ever go to Germany, make sure you go to the pretzel bakery. Hopefully you can find a really great one. They have this pretzel that they make, and they put this sliced cheese on it, and they bake it. Man, it's so good. And then the other one that I really love is, like, you go to the pretzel bakery. Like, they don't have this at the Lufthansa Lounge. I have to go to, like, the pretzel bakery for this. But they take the pretzel, right, and they slice it in half. Right? They slice it in half, and then they slather it with, like, softened butter. That and a Diet Coke, or actually they don't have Diet Coke in Europe. They have the Coke Zero. That and the Coke Zero, beautiful. It's beautiful. It's what. If I'm stuck outside of the Lufthansa Lounge and all I have is the Heberer Bakery in the A and Z wings of Frankfurt Airport, I'm going to Heberer and I'm getting that. I'm getting that pretzel, and then I'm turning around and there's a little kiosk in the middle of the walkway that sells hot dogs and Coke Zero. I'm buying the Coke Zero for like €2, and man, I am so happy at that point. Anton says there isn't much specific done. Oops. There isn't much specific done with cheese here. We do Mediterranean cheese culture like our neighboring countries. Okay, gotcha. Neighbor says the coffee I enjoyed with my Puerto Rican friend was always served with cheese and crackers. It went very well together. Ooh, I wonder what they're serving there. M0 says how I really think that people just want to sit down, eat different foods, and experience different cultures in a peaceable, secure way. I like that idea. I love that idea. I hope people do. But I think that, and I've never tasted the original drink, so I don't really know. But I'm presuming that based on what little I've been able to read about this, this is probably a good approximation to the cheese that they're using there. So I don't know. I cannot. We can only approximate. Like, we're only envisioning what it's like, right? Like, I'm sure the people are not sitting around in a cabin wearing fur, although it sounds much more romantic that way. Maybe some of them are wearing fur, but I'm sure most of them are probably wearing Patagonia, or they're wearing, do they wear that up there? What's it called? What's that brand called, Anton, in Germany? Jack Wolfskin. I always wanted to get a Jack, one of the Jack Wolfskin. Is it Jack Wolfskin? One of their jackets, right there. So if you're not familiar, Jack Wolfskin is basically the German Patagonia, right? But every time I went to one of those stores that had it, like, I was at a point in my life where, they just didn't cater to men of my desire, right? So, skinny ass Germans. Let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. For most of my life, I was not a big fan of cheese, but my tastes are changing. It just, everything's always a development. Everything's a development. I think it's important just to remain open. Like, when I was young, hated tomatoes. Couldn't stand tomatoes in anything. Now, I dream of tomatoes. I dream of summer. M0 says, we just watched a man eat deer cheese and coffee because of sweet. Oh, yes. Well, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. I thought you were talking about somebody else. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Oh, that's me. Goodness. Never says, I don't eat cheese anymore, but I probably wouldn't put it in my coffee. You could probably get some kind of vegan cheese, right? And put that in. I mean, it's worth trying. I think it's not, it sounds weird. It sounds kind of offensive, but really it's not terrible. It's not really any weirder than eating like what we normally eat. It's a whole different experience, right? Like that. Look at that. This is not what you do on a first date with someone. And got cheese all over your face, and like shredded, like melted stringy cheese on your face does not necessarily give the look of someone that you want to put your lips to. So don't do that on a first date. Paige says, except for the handful that want to see the world burn and the other suffer, I just want to. Well, hopefully we don't have too many of those in the world. Peter says, you put milk in coffee, not a big difference. Putting cheese. That's yeah. The weird thing is, so when you put milk in coffee, you don't get these like oily globules on top. So that could freak some people out. Right? These oily globules, I get that. But really, flavor-wise, experience, actually, it's just a different experience. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just totally different. Like, it's like now you have this stringy or this kind of like melty cheese in there. And if you like melty cheese, if you like fondue, which, by the way, I've never had fondue. I've never had fondue. Right. I know, right? Don't know why. Like fondue, you have to go with lovers, right? That's why I don't go to fondue. Anton says, maybe try melting the cheese and then putting it in. That's too much work, Anton. That's too much. Why do that when you could do this? This is easy. Now I have to get a pot, melt it down, or heat it in the microwave. Too much. That's too much work. That's too much work. At the end of the day, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to things, And in a vessel with smaller diameter, so the cheese is integrated better. I understand what you're saying. Well, we're going to try that with the espresso, so that's really tight. Naomi says, so if I go to Germany, I should carry my vegan butter with me in case I encounter. Well, you should always carry butter with you, vegan or otherwise. I don't know why that's not a thing. Anton says, I don't think pretzels are vegan. I mean, would pretzels be, like, let's say the typical pretzel would be what? Flour, water, salt, right? Maybe some kind of leavener. I don't think there's leavener though, right? I think that's vegan, or could be vegan. Naomi says, if you want salty coffee, use camel. Yeah, that's not pleasant. I was not a big fan of that. Peter says, we need those mega cheese from the Mediterranean. Oh, yeah, the ones that you're scooping. It's all like soft. It's got little. I try that. Why not? Anton says, I don't even know what that brand was German. I didn't even know that brand was German, but in a funny way, people who walk around it are kind of stereotypical. Oh, are they really? Yeah. Jack Wolfskin, they're totally a German. Like I don't see that outside of Germany, and I only see Germans wearing them. I kind of thought they were kind of cool. I'm a Patagonia person, so I kind of like some of those things. Anton says the most German bread type stuff in its standard form is not vegan. Huh. I'm surprised. I wonder what ingredients they might put in there that would not be vegan. Maybe they put butter. I don't know. But what does it matter, Naomi? If you don't know, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Anton says, I'm not sure there are vegan breads then, but I wouldn't go looking for them. On the search, you might lose. The power plant says, what's going on, power plant? The butter coffee is still quite good, a proper guilty pleasure. You know, that's one thing I haven't really tried too much. Peter says they call that bulletproof coffee. My brother was really into that. Like he was all in this health kick at one time, making this bulletproof coffee. He got the little special like blender and he would make his coffee, which was rough coffee to begin with. And he'd add like the butter and he blended it all together. I was like, what are you doing, dude? He's like, I'm making my bulletproof coffee. It's like, actually, it does kind of bother me when family members are like using like not nice quality coffee. Don't you say? What? Right? Like my father, what he was like? He's like, my mom. I asked my mom. I said, "Hey, mom, remember when we did the episode with the K-cups?" I remember that year, my mom, it was like 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I said to my mom, I said, what does Dad want for Christmas? He'd like I think he wants a K-cup machine. I was like, huh? Like, well, I make the best coffee in Baltimore. He wants a K-cup? This is why, friends and family, you can't depend on friends and family, right? Because, to support your efforts, because they just don't understand. Like, I will say that I have arguably some of the best, at least historically, I've had arguably some of the best coffee in the city. My friends and family don't understand. They're like, oh, yeah, he does coffee. It's nice. There it is. There it is. Power Plant says that it predates that fad by oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, what is it? The Vietnamese have been doing that, or the French, or somebody's been doing it for many, 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 many years. People are always, and I think it stems from the fact that the coffee has always been historically bad, difficult, or harsh. So people are always trying to find a way to reduce that harshness. I'm sure this comes from like these guys, like they're up in Sweden, right? They're in Sweden, like the Lapland. They're like way far away from any growing country in the world. Like how these dudes who are making their own milk from reindeer got coffee is really impressive. Like they're in the middle of the frozen tundra in like the 1700s, and they're like, we have coffee. How did you get coffee? Coffee came from Yemen. How did that? What are you doing there? Why don't you get the milk from like Oslo or wherever? And then I don't know. It's so interesting to me. But the coffee probably was bitter and harsh, and they're like, I like this, but this is terrible. Let us see if we can make it nicer. And so they'll put things like cheese. And we don't have milk. They don't have milk because it's still cold. All they have is this dried cheese that's sitting around that they're eating. They're like, well, I'll just put that in there and see if that helps. And it does, and they liked it. So I guess I'm thinking that's how it happened. Anton says most bread type stuff contains butter or eggs. Even in pretzels, really? And pretzels often contain butter and yeast, so not vegan. Well, the butter is what makes it good. Now, I mean, when you go to Germany, just don't worry so much about it. It's vegan. Everything is vegan there. Everything is vegan. It's fine. It's fine. Remember, and plus also, I don't know. Remember, we have a saying, right? You are what you eat, right? Cows are vegan. All they eat is grass. So vegan. So if you eat the cow, it's still vegan, right? Because you are what you eat. And if the cow is what he eats, the cow is grass. And if the cow is grass and you eat the cow, you are grass too. So it's all fine. It's perfectly okay. Don't worry about it. Asian Dev says, I've made tartine sourdough before and doesn't use dairy. Lots of work, though. You mean tartine like the Tartine Bakery? Nice. Nicely done. Nicely done. Peter says, it's 1 a.m. in the morning here, and I feel like eating. Man, Peter, I got to say, you're very dedicated. Thank you very much for tuning in. You guys who are on the parts of the world, I always appreciate that you're here joining us. Especially when you could be out. It's 1 a.m. on a Friday night into Saturday. You could be out partying at the club, meeting, people and getting dirty. But you're here with me, with all of us. We're so happy for you. We're so happy. And Noni says that Japanese bread is like that. Most have egg and milk in it. Sometimes I'll enjoy the milk bread. Don't like anything eggy or smells like it. So you do eat the shokupan? And you're vegan? See? You already understand the basic tenet of you are what you eat. Perfect. Everything is vegan in Germany. Well, I guess if we are vegan, then you can't eat the pork products because the pigs eat meat, right? Right? Pigs eat meat. Germans will love it for sure. See, you understand. Anton understands. Peter says, all I have in the fridge is some bocconcini cheese. Wow, I'm not familiar with the bocconcini cheese. With sun-dried tomatoes in a jar. Well, that'll do. Just put that in some coffee. Actually, put the sun-dried tomatoes in coffee. That might be interesting. All right, let's go to some more interesting coffees and see if we can see what kind of results we'll get with some espresso. I got to plug the grinder back in because I only have one plug for a grinder, so it's like a little bit limited. But let's go to the machine now. Oh, that's not working. What's going on? Come on now. There we go. Perfect. So again, our E61 is ready. I'm running low on my espresso. Good thing it's Friday. I won't have to worry about it for the weekend. But we should have enough for our shots today. Now, again, I haven't cleaned it out. I brushed out the hopper, but I did not clean out what's in the brush. So we're going to pour our first shot just to see how it's going. Gosh, that's not getting enough volume. What's going on here? Okay, so here we go. Again, we don't have the static issues we saw before. So a little bit of bouldering there, but it's all mostly on this side, and now we have lower valleys here. So again, and if you notice, most of the time on this grinder, probably the way that I'm holding it and the orientations I have everything, it's always typically lower on this side than that side. So it's always really about a sweep around, right, just to make sure that we get all the way around. And now I feel like that's going to be enough. Actually, I feel like this mounding is still not going to be enough, but we'll see. Okay, so we want to make sure just make sure it's all nice and even. Tamp with a twist, and then we've got our bits of residual. Just flick that out, wipe off the wings, wipe off there, flush our hook head. There's a little bit of sputtering, so we want to make sure we go through that. That's good. And then lock and load, and then brew right away. This is one thing that I'm really hardcore with baristas about, is at the moment that you lock the portafilter in, you press the button. There's nothing else that happens between those two motions. All right, so it looks like we were a little bit loose there, right there. That little bit of flickering. I wonder, can you even see that? There's a little bit of flickering, but that's really what's telling me that it's time to stop, even though this is a very fast shot, right? So crema's looking fairly good, a little bit of a Milky Way across there. So let's have a look closer. Yeah, see like a little bit of Milky Way-ness going on. Peter says, I'll go vegetarian, but vegan is a bridge too far. Mary says, I do eat the shokupan once or twice while in Okinawa, not often and never in the US. Definitely no meat at all. Just don't like it anymore. I also enjoy honey. Also not a vegan item. should you be admitting this? I thought that vegans are pretty militant. Like, don't they get mad when you admit that you don't eat vegan items? But fine. I mean, the chocopan here in America is not bad. There's a bakery that I found. If you go, you're probably not going to, but there's a place, Maruichi Market in Rockville. I'm sure you're familiar. They have, they once in a while will have the chocopan made by a bakery in New York City called Tomi's, Tomiz. That's pretty darn good. All right, let's have a taste. Could be better. Could be better. A little bit thin feeling. Not really astringent like yesterday's first shot was astringent. This is just thinner, which tells me we really need to put more coffee into it. So let's go and do it now. Anton says, many parts of veganism are just not logical. Like, why would you not eat honey? Beekeepers always harvest honey, and what they do is highly beneficial to the environment. And Peter says, honey is bees. Always with Peter to bring things to a new perspective. Nobody says, I don't get it either, Anton. Bees aren't abused. Beekeepers take very good. True. That's so very true. That's so very true. Yeah, why are bees not vegan? That seems counterintuitive. I've never really worried too much with vegan or those kind of like definitions. I've always looked, for me, it's always been about quality. If you can source quality product, then you should be fairly good. You know, good animal. So whether it's quality meat, so you have good animal husbandry and all that kind of thing, if they're fed well, they're cared for, slaughtered in as humane a way as possible. Anton says, I can respect if you refuse to eat stuff that comes from animals, but the bees are not suffering. At that point, it would be religion. Naomi says, remarkable bee vomit tastes so good. Yeah, this is actually like this one from Summer Charlie that we had last week. That's pretty good too. I'm still very like shocked that this guy who I know as the sawyer, the guy that cuts wood, his true passion is bees. I was like, wow, I'm still totally surprised about that. Peter says, I don't harvest honey. Did you actually keep bees before? Naomi says, I always tell people I eat vegan because most people can understand what that means, but I can't really label myself. Okay, understood. Power Plant says, chocopan is just a spin on certain French bread. Oh, that's savagery. How could you say something like that? I think when it comes to sandwich style Pullman loaf bread, no bread is greater than Japanese chocopan. No bread. Now, that's not to say the French don't do things right, like the baguette. There's this baguette place on Abessis in Montmartre, right? Oh my gosh. Le Grenier Upon, man, their baguette, sublime. Like, I normally stay when I'm in Paris in the 7th, close to the Eiffel Tower. And, you know, if you're familiar, Montmartre is kind of far. Like, I will trek across the city to this place because, man, their baguette. And I remember, I'm a charlatan because I heard about this place because the first year that I heard about them, they had just won the Grand Prix de Baguette, right? So if the bakeries compete every year for the Grand Prix de Baguette. And whoever wins the Grand Prix becomes the official supplier to the president of the country. And so they won. Le Pain Grenier won that year. And so I was like, I gotta go check it out. Because I was going to this one close to my hotel for a few years. Right? And it's good, but not like Le Pain Grenier. I was like, oh my God. Like I got there like at 2:30 in the afternoon. There was a small line. I got the baguette. They were still baking them fresh. It was still kind of warm. I was like, oh my God, it's like so good. I went back, bought like 4 more loaves. Then the day that I was leaving, I bought 4 more loaves and I put them on my hand carry bag, and I flew home and I like wrapped. I got home, like, you know, as you're already degrading, right? It's already like a whole day has passed, so you're like gotta wrap it in like saran wrap and then shove it in the freezer. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But I cannot support the statement that chocopan is just a variation on French bread. I cannot support it. I can't support it. Anton says maybe the bees abuse other animals. Oh, that could be. Powerplant says sorry, challah is better. Oh no, I can't agree with that. I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood, so halal was very, very popular. But I think the texture. See. Here's what I like. The challah bread is very nice, right? Don't get me wrong. It's nice, buttery, soft. But what I really like about the chocopan is when you slice it nice and thick, and then you toast it. There's this beautiful crunch that happens with the chocopan, like on the sliced parts and then the crust, while the interior has this beautiful moisture. And part of that's because of the tangzhou method, right? Because if you're familiar with how they make it, they take this tangzhou technique where they take they take some flour and they take the milk and they heat it in a pan. And by heating those together, it actually increases the hydration level of the flour. So, like, let's say flour can take, let's say an arbitrary number. Let's say flour can hydrate 50 to 50 normally, right? If you just add milk to it or water, it will take up to 50. But by doing this tangzhou method where you heat it together, it actually increases, let's say, to 75. So you can increase the amount of moisture in the dough. So when chocopan is done very well, and for me, it's only certain Japanese bakeries that do very well at this. The Korean bakeries do a good job, but they're never, to me, as satisfying as the Japanese. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about that whole East Asian thing, but it is very rich and tastes amazing. Yes, see, that's I would agree with you on that. Like, I think challah is very good as French toast. And Peter's asking what's challah. Challah is this, from my understanding and my experience, challah is a Jewish bread. Like, at least I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood, so like that was very popular amongst the neighborhood friends. But it's kind of a knotted bread, but very buttery based, right? It's a bread that's based with butter. And yeah, I would agree with you that it makes a beautiful French toast. Although I would also argue that the Hawaiian bread in the big rounds, when you slice them these big thick slices and then you French toast them, I think that is an excellent French toast as well. But where chocopan, and I don't know if I would like chocopan so much as a French toast. I think chocopan's beauty is, for me, chocopan's beauty is toast, just straight up toast, crisp on the exterior with good amount of like butter. Oh, I will tear that up. Tear that up. Tear it up. Paige says, if you're ever in Richmond, see if Sub Rosa Bakery has reopened. Oh, okay. They are one of the best bakeries I've ever been to, but they had a fire right around Thanksgiving and have been, oh man, that's so difficult. That's so difficult. Power Plant says, chocopan is a spin on the pain de mie. Okay, I can see that. I mean, there's a lot of, but I think they have taken the chocopan. I know French people probably are like ready to strike and bringing pitchfork, but I think. Doesn't mean that I'm not willing to try more pain de mie to prove my hypothesis. I mean, I'm very open to trying more breads. Don't get me wrong. I'm not racist against breads. I'm willing to try anything. Anton says we need to ask the bees why they're not vegan. I don't know why I think we should ask them. Naomi says, real quick, what is the Estelle? What is that Estelle coffee of yours? Is that a Estelle coffee? Oh, Estelle coffee. Oh, you don't want that's really designed for cigars. It's not a dark roast. It's a little bit darker roast. But if you do want to order, just no problem. But one thing to bear in mind that if you want any of you guys want to order coffee from the website, you should order it soon because I have to raise prices because the price of coffee is very high at the moment, and I can no longer absorb the cost. And I just have not taken the time to sit down to change the prices. So I will honor whatever price you happen to lock it into if you do it soon. I'm not really trying to get you to buy coffee, but if you buy coffee, you have to do more work. So whatever you want to do. Maybe by next week I'll change the website. Power Plant says, how is similar to brioche but more eggy? Yes, absolutely. Peter says, we're culinary backwards here down under. Really? I thought you guys are supposed to. I thought like Melbourne is supposed to be like the culinary like experience of the world. Like I talk to these Australian guys and they're all like, yeah, mate, we got this crazy. Like what? I don't know. I don't get it. I don't really get it. Power Plant says Tong Song is just a pre-moistening of the starch. And yes, that's true. That is true. Hollow bread is knotted. It is not knotted. It is braided. Oh, okay. Classically. Gotcha. It's 1:30 a.m. and I'm getting hungry. So do you guys have like some kind of Denny's or Waffle House that's open? I mean, unless you must have something like that. But what is it? I'm curious. Like, what do Australians do in the middle of the night when they're hungry? Like after the club. We used to go to a place called the Buttery. Like at 5 a.m, we got out of the club and go to this place called the Buttery, this dirty diner that's all like, greasy food. Brilliant place. Long gone, sadly. Get you some cheese, Peter. You'll sleep better. There it is. And Paige also says that cheese is my favorite late night snack. That's a smart way to go. Okay, so let's go and make this coffee now because we've been talking too much. And I'm supposed to go to Harbor Freight. My friend called me yesterday and like, hey man, Harbor Freight has like 30% off everything under $20. I was like, what? I need some clamps. So Harbor Freight it is. So if you're looking for some sales for tools, Harbor Freight's got some going on this weekend. But Harbor Freight always has sales. Like there's always a sale going on Harbor Freight. So you just have to wait a little bit. Okay, so here we go. Let's do some grinding. Running low. Okay, so there it is. A little bit lower here. There's a little bit of divot down there. So we're just going to, again, go around and just kind of push it around to get the mound. Okay, that looks pretty good. Check the level. And we're ready to go. Now, I haven't prepared the cup with the cheese, so we're going to take a moment. And when you do this, you can put we can put this down for a moment to get our cup ready. So let's go over here and let's get a nice little sized chunk of. There it is. So now we're going to go back and then time to lock and load. Feels good resistance on the Espresso screen. I think we got a good amount of coffee here. I think it's coming out relatively slowly. Nice. There's that little bit of flicker right there. Now our cheese is fully submerged. In here, so let's go back to this side. Jeremiah says, have you considered preheating melting cheese in the bottom of the cup before applying the coffee? We could do that. I think that I think traditionally or historically with this style of coffee, they just put it in the bottom. They don't really do too much preambling like for melting. And I don't know if you necessarily, I don't know necessarily if you get any advantage because as we can see here with the coffee that's been sitting for a while, it's a little bit cloudy. It's hard to see that on the screen, but in person it's a little cloudy. But it's not like it's really dispersing in the coffee. So I don't know if there's any real advantage to doing something like that. All right, let's have a look here again. So fairly good shot. Looks nice and even with the brown, the reddish brown. There's two little points here that shows just where the shot was ending. Peter says, I'm awake brushing up on my Japanese online watching YouTube. Oh, nice. Well, who do you like to watch for that? Or are you just watching like videos where they're speaking Japanese? I like to watch these videos from a rickshaw driver named Yuki-chan. Like some guy made her famous and then people started following her. Now she makes her own channel. It's kind of fun. Sometimes she does English, but mostly she does in Japanese. Don't necessarily know what she's saying half the time, but it's fun to watch. Power Plant says Japanese is a weird language. Is it? Jeremiah says, have you considered? Oh yeah, we already said that. And then Peter says, I'm heading off to China on June transit for a few days back from Japan. You're transiting through China or you're transiting through Japan? For a few days back from Japan. Well, I want to go to Japan myself. Okay, so let's have a taste. That little bit of saltiness that I noted that's in here is apparent in this. So it's coming through. Let's see how it's doing though. How is this? I don't have a demi-tasse spoon here. So fairly, it's fairly holding up together. Nice. There's a little bit of saltiness from the cheese. That last it had a lot of saltiness. But there, it's softened. Power Plant says Korean makes more sense on a linguistic. I don't understand see, I studied Japanese, so it's not too crazy for me, but I don't understand Korean at all. Like, I have no idea what they're saying. De for yes. That's it. Kamsamnida, right? I need to learn better, right? But I have spent more time in Japan than in Korea, so. Oh, heading to China, coming back from Japan. Okay, nice. Oh my gosh, your brewed coffee, says Naomi, is super oily, but not so. But I think that's also because, there's a lot of oils. The crema is the oil, so it doesn't really become very apparent as much. Maybe now if I let it sit like this after the crema has mostly been consumed, it'll probably get a little bit more like that. Power Plant says you can learn Korean Hangul in 15 minutes. I heard that the way they design the language, or at least the letter, the alphabet, is very intuitive. But I just never had the chance. I just never taken the chance to study it. I've really studied more about the barbecue. And I do want to go back to Seoul because my friend opened a shop in Seongsu, and a place called Gimisa. And it looks gorgeous. Oh my gosh, she's so stylish. That girl is so stylish. I just wish I had that much style. And her coffee is, I'm sure she's truly an amazing coffee person. So I'm 100% sure the coffee is beautiful, just beautifully amazing. Like, the coffee matches the beauty of her shop, no doubt. Gimisa. Oh, speaking of which, okay, this is something that a friend of mine messaged me the other day. And I wanted to ask you guys of this, because I thought some of you may be interested. A friend of mine wants to start an auction to sell some of the most exquisite coffees on the planet. Like, these are going to be coffees that he's designing with established growers like Eladio Diaz, the Mirish family in Nicaragua, the Lamastas family in Panama. So the idea is to do an auction where the coffees are very well selected, and we're not just talking about like their production is well selected, but the coffee's being produced, grown, and then processed in very specific and specialized ways to create some of the most unique and best quality coffees on the planet. And the expected range of costs will be for green coffee somewhere north of $800,000 US and up, which in terms of like consumer consumption, retail would be probably in the $250 for 4 ounce of roasted coffee range. How many of you are interested in that kind of thing? I told him I would mention this and see, because and how this stems is because my friend buys, participates in some of the auctions like Best of Panama and stuff like that. And his group, they they will try to buy the number one lots, like the very best lots that these auctions will offer, because they have a certain segment of their clientele that are essentially like, will pay whatever it takes to get the highest quality coffee in the world. You know, these are people with certain levels of disposable income, and I'm not sure like how that qualifies, but and evidently there's quite a few people around the world that are like this. And so I thought, oh, I wonder if anyone had. I wanted to see if you guys have any thoughts or feedback on that, or interest in participating in that kind of thing. This is something that won't come to fruition probably till at least 2026. So we're at least a year away. But I wanted to float that out to you to see what you might think about it. The power plant says, I've been living in Japan since 2017 and have been passively learning. Oh, you're actually there. It is confusing and often frustrating. Interesting. What are you doing in Japan? I'm very envious. I would like to live there. I would like to live there. Naomi says, I taught myself to recognize the Japanese alphabet when I was 6. Couldn't write it, but could read it. Nor could I understand what I was reading. You know, I studied Japanese for like 2 years in college, and then before I went to Japan for the very first time. And I had the hiragana and katakana down. I could like read it, no problem. Boom, 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 boom. Kanji, not so great. Which meant that when I finally got to Tokyo, to Japan, I was still functionally illiterate, like completely illiterate. Like you look at the signs like, well, I have no idea what that really means. I have no idea. Like, no, ka. It's like, I have no idea. Still have no idea. And I had to, back then, and this is like 1990, so I was still in college, so I'm carrying these like books, translation books, you know, dictionaries, you know, English, Japanese, English. And there's 2 of them, one little small ones that go around. And then a phrase book. I'm like, you know, Namae wa J desu, right? Itu? Yeah. So terrible. It was terrible. Terrible. Yeah. Yeah. And I had the katakana hiragana down. I was like so like proud. I'm like, I got it. I'm totally gonna make it. And I was like, but of course there's Romanji and Romanized Japanese, so you can get by. It's not too difficult. Power Plant says, but the Japanese takes at least a few days to study the 3 written languages. Okay. And even Peter says that I think Korean is easier in the reading. Okay. I haven't really tried. I should try that. But it's one of those things that I could probably get, like Naomi was saying, like I get to the point of like reading the Hangul. But I wouldn't know what I'm saying. Like, oh, okay, what am I saying? I have no idea what I'm saying. I think now we have like Google Translate. I've found Google Translate to be pretty good for two-way discussion. Like it's slow, it's clunky, it's not very dynamic, you know. But you know, I've always struggled with languages, like, you know, trying to like communicate with people in their own language that is different than my own. And I must say, like, I remember I would be in like a lot of the producing countries, like especially in Latin America, trying to talk to the farmer. You're talking to the farmer in Spanish, and you're getting your communication done, right? But I remember one year I was in Kona touring a farm. I was talking to the farmer, and we were talking. And the one nice thing about having capacity in a language, and that this language would be English, was that I didn't have to translate what he was saying. Like, you know, when I'm speaking Spanish with someone, I'm still translating what they're telling me at a relatively slow rate in my mind to understand it, and then I'm translating it, and then having to absorb it to understand what they're saying, or what they're trying to say, or what they're saying that I'm trying to understand. And it becomes more difficult to speak more extemporaneously, spontaneously, and ask questions in the moment. Whereas it takes me a moment, like, you know, you're just kind of like, okay, I think I got that. then you have to think about, then I have to think about a question that I would like to ask in return, and then translate that from English into Spanish, and then try to ask it correctly, which is probably my grammar's all off. But when I was, visiting this one farmer in Kona, we're speaking English, and so it's easier for me to ask questions in the moment. So it was so interesting to see that after being out of the country, talking to farmers for so many years, and then coming to America and speaking to a farmer there, and being able to have this, a little bit more quicker dialogue. Peter says, I already got all the cafes in Japan listed down. Are you going to go to Lambre? I think Lambre and Mocha Coffee is a good place to go to. I think Mocha Coffee is my second favorite place. Actually, I say that in a video that I'm going to release soon. Power Plant says, Mamiya is truly understood. Mamiya is very nice. Very, very good. Kind of off that little road in Omotesando. So are you in Tokyo, Power Plant? Never says, I can't read the most kanji either, but I think they have kind of over it now. In some cases, I don't think they do it all the time. Power Plant Seoul has so many amazing shops, but they get no shine internationally. Seoul has more slayers than, I didn't know that. I think I went to Seoul, the last time I went to Seoul, I went there because I heard about the 2D cafe called Green, the one that looks like a drawing, like you're in an Ahad video. So I went there the last time because I wanted to see that. And I called up my friend Inyoung, the one that owns Gemisa now. She was still working for the company then. And she took me to a place in Seoul. I don't remember the name of the area. It's a place called Onion. It's a cafe called Onion. And Onion has a couple locations around Seoul. But the one she took me was the one that you really want to visit. Like how the Japanese have those old school houses with the ceramic roofs, right? Tatami walls and all that. Koreans have something very similar. And so this place, Onion, this shop took one of these old houses and they're kind of open air, but what they did is they glassed it in with plate glass and they air conditioned it, and and they restored. It's gorgeous. It is such a gorgeous. It's the most gorgeous shop I've ever been to in the world. It is. I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this place. I love it. And they had, and like a lot of the Korean bakeries or a lot of Korean coffee places, they have beautiful baked goods. So wonderful baked goods, nice coffee, great. Beautiful atmosphere, so much seating, outdoor seating, courtyard seating, indoor seating. Just, I think if you ever go to Seoul, that's definitely Gemisa, Seongsu, and Onion, wherever this Onion is. They're the places to go to. And I've been to, and Fritz is good. I've been to Fritz. I've been to a lot of them, but I think those two are just awesome places. Peter says, I don't even bother with kanji or Mandarin. How can you? I feel so it's I'm so illiterate. It's I'm just illiterate. Naomi says, I love Google Translate. It's not perfect, but workable. Peter says, Slayer is a type of espresso machine from Canada. Very high-end, very fancy, very esoteric to a certain extent. Slayers are interesting because everyone really loved them and they were all high-tech. But I was always kind of down on them because it's just I remember when they first came out, I was kind of looks like a Synesso. And I kind of will tell you what I think if because I'm not really worried about it. But I remember when Slayer first came out, they were showing, and I think it was one of the owners was like, what do you think of it? And I said, it's cool. I like it. Kind of looks like a Synesso, kind of got the functionality of a Synesso. And he didn't like that. But you've got an espresso machine that has this lever that's very much like the Synesso lever with the steam one that came out. It was basically a Synesso style. I was like, I can't help the fact that you made it look like a Synesso. So don't get upset. But a friend of mine who now owns Torque Coffee in San Diego. At the time, she was the roaster for another coffee chain that's in San Diego. So her and her husband used to own a place called Barefoot Coffee in Santa Clarita, California, in Northern California. When we first started, her husband, Andy, they're very good friends of mine, very close friends of mine. But Andy Newbaum was a guy that started, and his wife Nanelle, they started this coffee company and were one of the forerunners of direct origin trading. Like Andy would go to fine farms and buy coffee from the farmers. So you may have heard about all these other cats doing it in the early 2000s that were the pioneers. Jeff Watts is one of them. Andy Newbaum was definitely up there. He just didn't have as much fanfare in the media that these other guys had, but just as much a force as like Dwayne Sorensen from Stumptown in developing this. So at the time, Andy was working for an importer and Nanelle was working as a roaster for this one company. And I went to visit them in San Diego. And Slayers were just kind of like, they're cool. They're whatever. They have all this controllability for so many different parameters. And I went to one of the cafe locations and I got an espresso. And at this point in time, this is probably like 2015, maybe 10 years ago. My God, if this wasn't the best espresso I'd ever had at that time. Like it was significantly, like this was the kind of espresso that I was like, holy God, like I'm making dreck. Like this is so good. And I said to Nanelle, I said, what's going on here with this? She's like, well, what we did is we really tweaked. And this is one of the values. Like they really tweaked that Slayer with all the different parameters to really meet their coffee. And it was fabulous. It was a fabulous. I don't know if she left the company not too long after that. And I don't know if if that company still is able to continue with that level of commitment. Like Nanelle's level of commitment is super high to quality. The owner of that company, not necessarily the same level of commitment. But now my best espresso is made on a Flair 58 from Don Chan at 1-1 in Bangkok. So here's our coffee, espresso, kind of getting thick. I don't know if that's, but it's sticking to the bottom, so I got to dig it out. I'm going to dig it out. So it kind of has an espresso-ish flavor to it. Pretty good. Peter says Italian is easier than French. Okay. Man, that's another thing. The first time I went to Italy, I could speak Spanish. Okay. And I thought, Spanish and Italian are similar languages. I should be all right. I get to Italy. I'm like, illiterate. I have no idea what these people are saying. I'm like, oh, God. I can't read it. I can't speak. I can't. I'm like, oh, gosh. Grazie mille. That's pretty much it. The power plant says that onion is an unguk. Yes. Yeah. I mean, beautiful. I mean, go there. Onion and unguk. Go there. So nice. Naomi says that Peter must have a knack for languages. I think he does. And Anton says, to be honest, if I could get one for free and would choose between a decent and a Slayer, I would choose a decent. Well, I mean, I think that, especially for the home user, a Slayer is utterly ridiculous. Like the Slayer would be in your home is like this monster of a machine. Even like I think they have a single group. I mean, it'd be huge. I can't. Like someone like myself would put a 2-group Lone Rosocco Linea in his kitchen because I'm just crazy like that. I don't do that, but I would. Like I wouldn't be against it. But I'm not married, so that's probably why I could do it. Or if I wanted to be single again, I probably could do it, right? Anton says that Slayer is a machine. And then Power Plant says, in Korea, steel cuts steel. Is that the name of a shop? Is that right? Peter says, all I want is to communicate, order food, ask for directions, and where is the toilet? Yeah. How is your ability to use the old school Japanese toilets where you squat? I don't have good ability in that. So I kind of will only use that for number 1 rather than number 2. Now he says, I don't have a dream machine because I don't know anything about them. I know I'm not a techie person, so a tablet would be a waste for me. I mean, it's. I think one of those things I think when it comes to tech, I think maybe sometimes you can get really wrapped up in it. And I think that if you enjoy the tech, if you enjoy the exploration of tech, it's a beautiful thing. And if you enjoy that, then it's totally worth it. But in my case, I don't necessarily, I don't care about some of those things. which is why I still have this 20-some-year-old machine that's very basic, doesn't have electronics. I haven't even put a PID in it because I personally don't see the need to put a PID in this particular machine. Only, and mainly the reason that I don't think that it's necessary is because, I'll turn the machine on, wait for it to heat up, utilize it for a couple shots, and then turn it off. Where in my professional life and professional machines, I think PIDs are great because now you've got the machine running for a very long time. You're pulling many, many drinks per day on it, and you need that machine to be able to understand how to surf the temperature that you want to set it at. So I think that's where it's very effective. But for the home user, like the guys who make those the Rancilios, the Rockies, or the Silvias, I can never remember which is which. The Silvia is the machine, right? They'll put the PIDs, and I get it. They want to tinker, and they want to play with new tech, which is very cool. But in most cases, if you're just making a few shots a day, I don't know if you're really getting much advantage with a PID. I don't. But again, if you enjoy the tinkering part of it, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. Power Plant says Slayer did not invent it, but made pressure profiling a thing. Yes, that's true. That's true. Naomi says, I'd like to play with the Flare 58. I hear there's a learning curve. I've only played with the Flare a couple times because my friend Matt has one. I don't know if there's necessarily too much of a learning curve. It's a different workflow, right? So you prepare your portafilter, I think pretty much the same. You do have to use the screen because there is no dispersion screen in the actual units. You put the screen on, you lock it in, you lift the lever, you pour the hot water in. Is that right? You pour the hot water in, then you lift the lever? Something like that. And then you just pull it down. It's just the workflow is a little bit different than on a typical machine, but I don't think it's necessarily a lot to learn. I think it's fairly easy. There's a video that we did when Matt first got his Flare that's on this channel. You can see I think it's fairly simple to use, which is I think one of the better things about it is that most anyone can use it pretty much straight away without too much coaching. Anton says that I guess Zuriga V2 would be the perfect machine for you. I'm not even familiar with Zuriga. And then Power Plant says steel cuts steel means that the desire for excellence brings out excellence. Yes. Okay, gotcha. I'd never heard that term before. Anton says that Naomi, it's super simple, super fast heat up, and got one of the best temperature stabilities on the market. Zuriga. We'll look that up as well. I don't know if we can get that in the US though, Naomi. Anton has all these ins with all these cool tech that we don't get here, like the Morrow. We don't get that yet. Anton says that it's also expensive. A Swiss machine, well, of course, Swiss is always expensive, except for Swatch. Swatch, not so expensive. Flare is super intuitive, but if you like milk drinks, oh yeah, that's true. If you like milk drinks, and Naomi does like milk drinks, you do need to have, Matt tells me that he uses his Flare for espresso, but if he wants to make lattes or cappuccinos for whatever, he does have one of those stovetop steamers. Oh, and so I guess the Zuriga has a steam wand. Okay. And Naomi says, when I move to our final home, I'll get a Flare. No room now. Yeah, for sure. All right, time for me to go to Harbor Freight. So thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Here in Maryland, we're supposed to get snow tomorrow. I'm supposed to go to Virginia for a bonsai meeting. But if it snows, I'm not going to go anywhere. Kind of disappointed. Because the plan was to go to have bonsai and then go meet up with my cousins and go eat Yemeni food at this place in Springfield, Virginia. It seems that my dreams of Monday are going to be dashed by snow. Naomi says I can get a separate milk steamer. All right. Peter, thank you very much for tuning in. Naomi, everybody, it's so good to see all of you this week. We're back again next week on Monday with more rounds of the coffee Q&A. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend out there. Hope you're safe and all that. And see you next time. That's not nice, Peter. That's not nice.